now that we know, just a little bit, I guess, about just about how kind of MEL works and how we can use it, it's gonna like actually get something a little bit practical before we go even further into kind of um, if statements and for loops and hardcore code. So, what we've done so far is just pretty much look at our script editor, what Maya is doing when we press buttons, and now I just want to kind of use that and see how that can actually work for us in a practical way without going much further, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a curve, right? So I'm just going to get my EP curve tool. I'm going to set it to linear, and I'm just going to draw out a shape. Okay, so this shape for me is going to be an arrow. So I'm just going to draw out an arrow there. Then we've got 3 out here, there, there, and there. Now, when I press enter, you can see it ran just like we looked at the the polysphere before. It's run us a line of code giving me exactly the coordinates and where how this curve is going to be created given how I drew it, right? Now, I want to be able to create arrows easily without having to, every time I want to create an arrow, I don't want to have to draw one out, okay? Now that I have what an arrow is, which is the code here, that is what the arrow is. I can even delete this arrow, right? I'll delete this. So I'm going to copy this curve, this code into my MEL script here. And if I run it, as we know from previously, I'm going to run exactly what I did when I drew out that curve. So that code is now creating an arrow for me perfectly. Also, as we know from before, if we look at the flags for this command, which is the curve command, I can look down, look down, look down. Nothing really I really want to change. Let's say I want to give it a name. So flag of -n. I'm going to call it curve arrow 01. Right, so I've given it a name. So again, we can test that. So if I run this code, nice, curve arrow 1. That's exactly what I want. Now that we know that, so how do we use this in general, right? I want to keep this bit of code so I can create an arrow whenever I want to, okay? So to do that, I'm just going to copy this code, middle mouse, and I'm going to drag it onto my shelf. So you can see that I brought my shelf back up again, but you guys definitely know how to do that. And what that means is I'm dragging this code through the middle mouse. I'm just going to delete that again. I am creating a button that whenever I click a button on my shelf with this, that means that it's going to run that code. So if I click this button, bam. It gives me, I just lost my, that's fine. What it does is it runs that code. So it's stored now in this button, right? So this code here is stored in this button, right? So I'm going to delete it. So let's say I want lots of arrows. So I have lots of arrows. I don't have to draw one out every time. Let's say I want to do some animation for some reason with some arrow curves, right? It means that I don't have to draw them every single time. And I'm not sure if there's no curve primitive for an arrow, is there? But maybe there is. But either way, if there is a curve primitive for an arrow, you can draw anything out that you want, right? And because it's nicer, not necessarily to do with scripting, but just creating new shelves and then kind of creating custom buttons, which is what you do a lot when we have little nice kind of custom little scripts like this. Well, it's not really a custom script, but kind of automating something that we do a lot. I'm just going to jump up here to the cog next to my shelf. I'm going to go edit shelf, or shelf editor rather. I'm going to find the shelf that I'm in. So I'm in the MEL Tute shelf for me personally. I'm going to find the button I want to find. And you can see that currently it's actually kind of trying to describe the whole, all the code. But I don't want that. So firstly, I want to change the icon label to arrow. Right, so you can see already that it's changed the icon label to arrow. Also actually arrow curve, which means I'll just shorten it. Yep, ARW curve. See, so that actually works quite well. And the tooltip, that's what, whenever you mouse over it, that's what comes up in the help bar down here, right? So that's going to be, my tooltip is going to be create arrow curve. There you go. So go save all shells. Yeah, that works, that works, that works. If I mouse over and then I look at the bottom, you can actually see, I mean, even though, yeah, you might be able to see at the very bottom in my my tooltip, it says creates arrow curve. And there we go, you can see what it is. And if I click it, it creates me arrow. Awesome. So that's just a very basic practical way that, I mean, how we kind of want to start. You can start building up lots of things as well by taking the code from up here and repurposing it for your own gain. Okay? Sweet.